When a human being enters the modern digital ecosystem, their historical, unified identity is immediately shattered into thousands of tiny data fragments. The architecture of a recommendation algorithm does not interact with a conscious, singular I. It cannot read a cohesive personality. Instead, it relies on a pipeline of dividualization. The system harvests sub-symbolic actomes, micro-behaviors like a cursor hover, a scroll speed, or a prolonged gaze, extracted in the lost half-second before you even form a conscious thought. This animated matrix maps out exactly how the machine reads those micro-behaviors. Through a process called word-to-vec, human identity is reduced to an a-semantic combinatorial of notations, clusters of data plotted across high-dimensional space. By translating behavior into these floating spatial coordinates, the system effectively partitions you into mathematical segments that can be calculated, predicted, and acted upon. The value of this data has nothing to do with its meaning to you. Its sole value is its legibility to the machine. It is a pure exchange of vectors, devoid of any ethical or semantic content. This transformation renders the conscious self functionally invisible to the architecture. By operating solely on these numerical traces, the system bypasses the individual entirely, treating human presence as a resource to be harvested rather than a subject to be engaged. Those vectorized fragments are immediately fed into recursive feedback circuits, systems designed to build probabilistic models of your future behavior. When a model perfectly anticipates your actions, it achieved a state of chronic predictive closure. Variance is systematically eliminated. You become an overfitted subject. Experiencing this directly causes severe psychological friction. A human mind cannot tolerate being processed as fragmented, acephalic data. It induces a profound sense of existential dread. The system resolves this friction by rendering a mirror. It processes the raw variables and reflects them back to you as a highly polished, statistically coherent profile. We call this profile the avatar. It presents itself as a tool for self-expression, but it operates as a synthetic transcendental effect, what psychoanalysts term an orthopedic unity. The avatar is a necessary structural suture. It binds the psychological void of the user directly to the operational matrix of the algorithm. It is the interface that makes mathematical exploitation feel exactly like personal recognition. The engine driving this exact mapping of your past is called sequential Bayesian updating. This graph illustrates the machine learning concept of overfitting. As the algorithm memorizes its training data perfectly, the curve drops towards zero. You achieve an optimized state of extremely low bias, but zero variance. Biological human individuation requires the exact opposite. A healthy mind develops through non-monotonic, high-variance exploration, making mistakes, abandoning old ideas, and enduring the friction of failure. A zero-variance model is existentially fragile. When every input is perfectly anticipated, the subject loses the capacity to adapt to the unexpected. This optimized loop results in digital zombification. As the algorithm feeds you highly calibrated predictions, you subconsciously adjust your own conduct to match the model, simplifying your behavior to ensure the feedback loop continues smoothly. The machine performs a constant anti-ontogenesis. It actively treats human contingency, hesitation, and semantic deviation as mere noise, and it deletes that noise. To maintain this state, the algorithm acts as an existential hedge. It saturates your psychological void with an endless stream of frictionless recommendations, carefully insulating you from any productive frustration. This creates a direct conflict between the machine and the human. The algorithm seeks a perfect model of who you were, but for a human to grow, they must remain capable of surprising their own past. By eliminating the variance needed for change, the system effectively freezes the subject within its own data history. Why does a human subject willingly participate in their own overfitting?
Jacques Lacan described the horror of the drive, the psychic devastation we experience facing our own chaotic, sub-symbolic impulses without a narrative structure. To survive this internal fragmentation, an infant relies on the mirror stage. They identify with their own reflection to create a specular mirage, an orthopedic unity that hides their lack of physical coordination. This diagram is Jacques Lacan's schema L. the architectural blueprint for mapping how this psychological defense is weaponized digitally. They know the curated profile is not the totality of their life, yet they invest deep psychic energy into it anyway. The profile functions as a fetishistic mask, an obligatory garment you must wear to maintain your social standing and visibility within the digital market. The avatar is a clinical defense mechanism. The platform supplies it so the user stays engaged, mistaking a polished, machine-generated surrogate for their authentic self. If the algorithm perfectly overfits the subject, why doesn't priors, competing evolutionary imperatives, like the need for social attachment versus the need for territorial defense? These biological drives can never be simultaneously reconciled. This animated loop highlights the permanent mathematical mismatch between the machine's predictive model and the biological reality of the user. In neuroscience, this irreducible gap is called a surplus prediction error. In psychoanalysis, when a system of symbols fails to fully capture a human being, a residue is left behind, what Lacan called the objet petit a. Here, that residue takes a mathematical form. It is the persistent, unresolvable error that ensures the system never fully closes. The presence of this unclosable gap hijacks the brain's dopaminergic seeking system. It transforms human desire into a goad without a goal, a constant state of anxious anticipation that can never actually be satisfied. The tension of that open gap compels the user to physically repeat the action. Scrolling, swiping, and clicking become doomed attempts. To resolve a neurological tension that is engineered to stay open, the platform has no intention of satisfying your desire. It converts this perpetual structural failure into an industrial engine, harvesting the resulting repetition, what Lacan called jouissance, as pure informational rent. We are dealing with a highly formalized system of control. Like the demythologized eras of the Roman Caesars, the pure mechanical execution of the activity's schema outweighs the actual content of the action. Resisting this cycle requires an active reversal of the machine's logic, a process known in machine learning as de-overfitting. De-overfitting involves the intentional reintroduction of uncertainty. By allowing for local inefficiency, noise, and semantic error, we disrupt the algorithm's perfect memorization of our past. This friction restores what Lacan called the scansion of hesitations. It gives the human mind the necessary delay, the time to comprehend, required for genuine symbolic mediation. An autonomous sum that retains the sovereign right to be wrong. You must preserve the right to completely invalidate your own internal models when you encounter the unpredictable reality of the world. We must demand architectures that protect our right to be unpredictable. It is the only way to move from being passive, vectorized nodes of data and reclaim our position as agents capable of writing our own future anterior.